There we are. Let me know if the audio is okay, chat. I putzed around with the settings. Francois says late, only just. Only just. I figured we would switch around the order of things today. Start with the review, and we'll front load the review of the detachment, and then switch to a more wholesome, a more pure hobby hang stream. How's it going, Tramari? Misfit, Francois? How are you guys doing? Are you as pleased with this detachment as I am? Pollux, welcome. Welcome to the stream. Right, so, in case you guys haven't heard, the Chaos Space Marine Detachment is indeed the fabulous Fabius Vial Detachment. Now, Pollux sounds like we are not happy. Yeah, I suppose I'll ask for a bit of an excuse, a bit of a mind the incendiary title. This detachment could actually be very potent, very mechanically viable, very thematic, and very rewarding for the fans of the fabulous Fabius. But with regards to the problems, with regards to the key problem of Codex Chaos Space Marines, I think this Fabius Vial Detachment is an absolute waste because it does not shore up that issue. The issue, most presently, being the failing to serve the Word Bearers a proper detachment in the Chaos Space Marines Codex. Link Dancer, welcome to the stream. Link Dancer says, I've heard this detachment supports melee-focused units, I think. That sounds about right. Chaos Space Marines do lean pretty melee. They lean hard into melee, that's for sure. More so than the Loyalists. Misfit says, I'm chilling with a new flavor of my favorite rum. Hey, that sounds like a nice way to enjoy your evening. As we get closer and closer to Christmas, you look forward to those festive beverages. Anyways, I guess we can get right into this detachment. Creations of Belay. Here we are. Creations of Bile. What's the thematic goal? Let's see here. I'm sure it is what we would expect. Comprising abhorrent warbands of augmented Chaos Space Marines, the varied creations of Bile display the depths of the primogenitor's dark genius. Whether devoted to Bile's search for prized specimens and forbidden knowledge, or bartered to ambitious warlords in return for greater riches, the Clone Father undertakes... each new terrible. Excuse the excuse the terrible reading here. Let's see. Bartered to ambitious warlords in return for greater riches, these altered warriors expand the web of the spider's sinister influence. Each new experiment the Clone Father undertakes is intended to improve upon the works of the Corpse Emperor and render the transhuman form of a Space Marine more lethal. Yeah, it feels like Vile should have been the one to make betterer Marines. Anyways, that's old news. That's old news. Let's take a look at this detachment rule. Like I said, this could just be rather rewarding for fans of Fabius. Experimental augmentations detachment rule. Let's see the system. At the start of the battle, select which augmentations are active for Heretic Astartes infantry models. Excluding damned models. Makes sense. You don't want cultists to be augmented. It's not on theme. So you select at the start of the battle which are active. To do so, select either one from the list below or randomly determine two by rolling 2d6. Okay, so that's a nice mechanic to encourage a thematic bit of randomness, right? Which mutations, which enhancements will be manifested by Fabius. And if he's your warlord, you can randomly determine... When randomly determining your augmentations, you can reroll one or both dice. Yeah, that's great. That gives him extra validity in this detachment. Very cool. I mean, it's his detachment. You'd expect some pretty serious integration. Okay, so we have 6 outcomes here, and they are cholinergic accelerants. Add 1 to the attacks characteristic of melee weapons equipped by models in this army. Hyperadrenal infusion, add 2 to movement. Those two pair well together. Improve the weapon characteristic of melee weapons equipped by models through paraneural reactions. 4 is supracutaneous chitination. Improve the toughness characteristic by 1. Macrotensile sinews, add 1 to the strength characteristic. And ophthalmic enhancement. Ophthalmic. Jeez, these scientific words are throwing me for a loop. Improve the ballistic skill of ranged weapons equipped by this model by 1. Alright, so a fairly good selection of outcomes here, and if you're rolling randomly, I'll give you variety game to game, which is kind of fun. Kind of a fun thing to spice up the variety. Keep things from becoming stale. I don't hate them. And you get 2 if you're rolling randomly. And you get to re-roll, so you don't have... it's very unlikely to get doubles in that case. And you're going to use this detachment with Bile. Why wouldn't you? It'd be totally absurd not to. Tramari says, got to go. Got some holiday obligation/shopping to do. You take care, Tramari. Thanks for stopping by. Tyler Chadwell says, whoever made the detachment rule really want to show off their pre-med degree, huh? Yeah, feels that way, certainly. Assuming these are proper scientific terms. Like, paraneural reactions, hyperadrenal, they must be. It must be sci-fi grimdark med terms for sure. On the enhancements front, we have surgical precision for our Heretic Astartes models, excluding cultists. The bearer's melee weapons have precision. Not terrible. Not terrible. It's cheap at 10 points. Living Carapace, Chaos Lord only. Add 1 to the bearer's wounds characteristic, and the bearer has a 5-up feel no pain ability. Nice. Makes him a bit more sturdy, that's for sure. Helm of All Seeing. Heretic Astartes infantry, excluding cultists again, excluding damned models. Enemy units that are set up on the battlefield from reserves cannot be set up within 12 inches of the bearer. Killer enhancement. This is so good. Gives you that Phobos utility, that's for sure. It is within range of the bearer, not the bearer's unit. But it's still quite a luxury. Still quite a luxury. And the last enhancement is Prime Test Subject. Heretic Astartes infantry model. Again, excluding damned units or damned models. Add 1 to the damage characteristic of melee weapons equipped by the bearer, and each time the bearer makes a melee attack, you can re-roll the hit roll. So full hit re-rolls and +1 damage. +1 damage is... that's a good quality of life enhancement. Re-rolling hits is also good, especially when you're dark pacting, right? You have to kind of weigh that into the calculus with all of these mechanics. Yeah, 35 points. It's an expensive enhancement, but the +1 damage shouldn't be understated. Really tunes up how potent things are. I'll put that on a Chaos Lord, and then when he pops his Dark Glory once per battle, he's going to be probably damage 4 with a boatload of attacks. Rerolling everything. Yeah, that's a scary combo. Icarus says, the impression I'm getting is that this is the flavor of the month and they're going to abandon all support within 3 years. Yeah, I think so. These are bonus detachments, kind of gimmicks in some cases. Like for detachments, or sorry, for the factions that already have codexes, it does feel that way, but not always. The Necron's detachment didn't feel memey and themey, right? Like a Fabius Bile detachment or like that warrior spam detachment. That does feel kind of memey. No, the Thousand Suns ones for the factions that have not yet received codexes or their supplements or whatever. I imagine they might be. It could be the case that these are just like beta, so to speak, early access detachments. Maybe. I think it's likely. I would like to believe. Icarus says kind of mean creations of Bile as a whole. Sort of. Like Fabius Bile came out when? During Psychic Awakening, right? It was like a phoned in kind of detachment, you could say. Not phoned in. It was just, like you said, flavor of the month is probably the best way to put it. And then it gets abandoned until they want to sell that fruit again or pick from that tree, right? When it suits GW, they'll support Fabius Bile in a rewarding way like this, and then when they don't want to, if the codex already has enough rules and detachments, they won't. I am just annoyed that they have given Fabius Bile attention before the word bearers. Okay, so looking at the stratagems here, let's continue on. We have monstrous visages. Your opponent's shooting phase or the fight phase just after an enemy unit has selected its targets. Your defensive, shoot, or fight phase stratagem used on your infantry. And until the end of the phase, each time an attack targets your unit, subtract 1 from the hit roll. It's fine. Not especially exciting. Masters are watching. Fight phase, just after an enemy unit has selected its targets. So this is a fight phase. Reactive option. Again, Heretic Historia's infantry unit. And until the end of the phase, each time a model from your unit is destroyed, if that model has not fought this phase, roll 1d6, subtracting 1 from the result if it is a damned unit. On a 4+, do not remove it from play. The destroyed model can fight after the attacking unit has finished making its attacks, and is then removed from play. So you have a fight on death on a 4-up or a 5-up for damned units. I'm not totally surprised this is here. That was the gimmick of the Bile detachment, if I recall correctly, from previous editions. 1 CP fighting on death is good, but rolling is less good. But that's kind of the paradigm we find ourselves in 10th edition. Right? Index Chaos Space Marines, Pact-Bound Zealots, or Slaves to Darkness at the time, had a fight on death for 1 CP that you had to roll for as well. But I think it was a 4-up to a 3-up if they were marked Khorne. Meanwhile, Loyalists had guaranteed fight on death in Gladius, but you have to pay 2 CP. Would it be too strong if you had to roll on a 3-up? I don't know. This is a very specialized detachment, and fighting on death was their thing. But I suppose it's Just nitpicking, really. Okay, moving on. Fight phase stratagem, 2 CP. Okay, this is going to be good, right? That's what that means. Specimens for the spider. In the fight phase, when a infantry unit of yours has not been selected to fight. We have to select a unit that has not yet been selected to fight. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit makes a melee attack that targets a character unit, you can reroll the wound roll. Very nice. After a unit has fought, if one or more enemy character models were destroyed as a result of those attacks, select one enemy unit within 6 inches of your unit. That other enemy unit must take a battle shock test. If the enemy warlord was destroyed as a result of those attacks, each enemy unit within 6 inches of your unit must take a battle shock test instead. So like a fun bit of reward for killing characters, and you do have that enhancement that gives you precision. So it should be achievable, I think. Achievable. Right, if we scroll up here. We also have this one, which is very scary. The prime test subject enhancement. +1 damage and full rerolls. Surgical precision just gives you a precision. You know, you could give this to a Master of Executions and have him be like your specimen, your specimen obtainer type character. The collector, if you will. That's kind of fun. Alrighty, so again, no reactive stratagem here in this detachment either. Okay, next we have a command phase detachment, or sorry, a command phase stratagem called Delayed Mutations for 2 CP. You select an infantry unit in your command phase, excluding damned units. That unit suffers D3 mortal wounds, then select one augmentation from the detachment abilities. Until the start of your next command phase, models in your unit have the selected augmentation in addition. Wowee, look at this. Look at this. For D3 mortal wounds and 2 CP, which is steep, you can have 3 abilities. And you just get to pick this one. Very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, +1 attack and move. I mean, +1 to attacks is just such a good force multiplier. And for 1 CP, we have Diabolic Regeneration, 1 CP in the command phase. Again, infantry, excluding damned units. 1 destroyed model, excluding character models, is returned to your unit. If it's a battle line, a D3 destroyed models. Wow. Wowee, that's really good. 1 CP for potentially 3, 6 wounds, 6 chaos, 6 legionaries could be returned to your unit. It's a dice roll, but averagely, even 1 CP for 4 wounds for 2 guys. It's pretty good. It's too bad there's no way to clamp the minimum there through some modifier or bonus. Right, like yesterday's detachment system, depending on the psychic power or the psychic conclave that was active, it would modify your stratagems. It's too bad we don't really have that here, but I guess it doesn't adapt as cleanly. And the last stratagem is Auto Stimulants, 1 CP in the charge phase. Until the end of the turn, your unit is eligible to declare a charge in a turn in which it advanced. Great. Yeah. That's a ideal mechanic for a melee army. Yep. It's, look, it's a detachment. I'm not particularly enthused. I think you all know why. But I think with that, the review, the review of this attachment, this in-depth review is complete. Travis, welcome to the stream. Travis says, hello, y'all. I like the title, but did you expect any less? I was hoping we'd get a word bearer's detachment, Travis. That's what I was hoping. I think that's what ought to have been done. Warp Forge says, I made a similar rule for my Night Lord's homebrew back in 8th edition. Welcome, Warp Forge. Good to see you. Warp Forge says, I like the detachment. T8 Obliterators sounds sweet. My only critique is wishing they did more with damned units, as Fabius is all about that new man project. I mean, that's not a terrible idea. I guess for whatever reason they decided to exclude the mortals. Maybe they didn't want this to become a damned detachment, because they have that other detachment for that. Anyways, perhaps now that the incendiary scathing review is over, maybe I should change up the video description. Get back to some right proper hobbying. The real pure, the real enjoyable aspect of the hobby. Right? It's what marks us out as people of culture. Oh, shifting over to YouTube Studio. 16 concurrent viewers. Very cool. Make sure to like the stream. If you just came for the review and you're dipping out, I would appreciate it. Okay, I'm just going to edit the stream settings. You know what? I think it's a bit too cumbersome to do that live. A bit too much admin. So instead, we'll just leave it as is and we'll just hobby on here. We will just hobby on. The wet palette is... It could be more moist. It's looking a bit parched, I'd say. Yes, I would have... Oh, you know what? I am missing a light. Hold on. 1 second, guys. Travis says, I think they look at the community input and do the exact opposite. But then again, I am a doomer. Well, you've come to the right stream. I try to not lean too hard into the negatory vibes, but sometimes my righteous fury gets the better of me. Yeah, Games Workshop just wants us to believe that they did right by the word bearers. The word bearers have a detachment. It's right there. It's pack-bound zealots. And I think if you find yourself believing that, you're just drinking the Kool-Aid personally. See if I can get any more value out of this off-white. think it's done, guys. Stop it! You're killing him. Yeah, I think this is ready for the bin. Dea Morales, welcome to the stream. You know, as an Emperor's Children's player, I'm supposed to enjoy being abused. This is no longer enjoyable, GW. It's a certain kind of abuse. Let's pre-shade these fabrics. I think doing this will just help that Agrax wash do its thing. Dea Morales says AK Off-White is so good. Well, then I'll have to look towards AK for a replacement. Off-White is a bit of a crutch paint for me. And it does hurt that mine is expired. I mean, I have some old, what is it, White Scar from GW, which is not ideal, but I'm sure it can be used in a similar capacity. It's like Off-White has just enough bright value that you can use it to just create edge highlighting colors to any base color you really mix it into, without getting too chalky the way a pure white pigment tends to. At least in my experience. And given my experience with AK and the general pedigree they seem to have, I'm sure their Off-White's probably even greater as it relates to how user-friendly it would be. Pyro says, hello there. Hello there, Pyro. Pollock says, I want the word bearers to have a codex / multiple detachments, but I don't think I will witness the day I will witness the day that happens. That will only happen. It's very unlikely. We might not be in that timeline, unfortunately, Pollux. I think it'll only happen once they've exhausted all the other Chaos Space Marine legions. But, like, what kind of paradigm, what kind of faction breakdown is GW trying to establish? A codex for each Traitor Legion? That seems ridiculous. I think they're just building to an Age of Sigmar alliance situation with the demons paired with their mortal counterparts in the Traitor Legions that are singularly God-marked. That seems to be the goal, the unspoken goal there. It's just a hunch, though. I don't have insider knowledge. Though my predictions are pretty good. I'll say that. That battle focus prediction, dude, that's peak. That is a peak prediction. Well, it actually wasn't a prediction. I just said that would be a better direction for the for the faction. I didn't think they would do it, so maybe I shouldn't take credit for that. I could just take solace in having good opinions. Look at that. We've given his clothes some texture. And that'll only be enhanced by the wash. Now, not everyone would spend so much time painting a cultist, but this guy does have a shotgun, so he's pretty cool. Pollux G says they could do so cool things with demons. Indeed. Indeed. Misfit says, I am pondering a slight color change with my Tau Sept, changing the accent color from a light to mid brown to a burgundy. A burgundy cow color scheme, eh? Could be good. You'd have to share some samples to get a community consensus, but yeah, nothing. Whoops, that's my chair. I swear, guys, I swear that's my armrest. They are adjustable. Yeah, nothing feels as disappointing as when you're looking at your army and then you're like not exactly happy with how it's looking. And then you're kind of stuck committing to something that you're not happy with. And then so you must commit to the great repaint. Can you really say you're a Warhammer collector if you haven't repainted your army? I feel like it's a rite of passage in a way. Pollux says, maybe I'm just looking for an excuse to get Be'lakor. Who knows? Look, Be'lakor is a cool model. I have just thrown a fair bit of shade his way because I was just kind of perturbed at how pushed he was for demons. As a demon purist, and by that I mean I like seeing demons in isolation more than I like seeing them all partying together. And look, I think there's a great narrative potential for the unholy alliance of all four Chaos Gods, right? But the idea of just, you know, a Nurgle demon's army just sparks so much joy compared to the unholy alliance mixing and matching all the best assets from every Chaos God. It's not as good. Not as pure. And unfortunately, Be'lakor's thing is, you know, he's hated by all the Chaos Gods, but he works the best with all of them at his disposal. It's a bit too easy to hate on Be'lakor. I have to take Be'lakor. He makes my demons better. Though that might not be as severe as it once was. I believe they've rolled in the Shadow of Chaos aura to all greater demons now, which is very much appreciated, I think. I'm going to layer up some of this purple stuff. Some of this purple color on the armor here. Kind of helps with that readability. And I suppose, again, it doesn't need to be perfect, because Well, because I don't think that's the standard I want to have for this kill team, frankly. So what's everybody else hobbying on? Give me your hobby energy. Misfit says, fortunately, it's not a full repaint, just a few panels per suit as I work through them. Oh, that's not too bad. Yeah, that was a similar thing I did with my salamanders, right? They weren't always framed as a successor chapter. That was a repaint change. And, you know, I kind of worked within the standard salamanders scheme for the successor chapter, so it's, yeah, similar to what you're describing, I think. Definitely makes it less of an arduous paint over. Pyra says, I'm thinking for Admech to make the inner robe color a wine red / purple. Interesting. Inner robes being reddish purple. Good color choice. What's the outer robes? You know, Admech are a weird faction. They're mainly characterized as being red, right? But they're also always associated with being on Martian bases, and it leads to a hard scheme to make shine, I think, in that regard. And it's locked. They're sort of locked to that based on their identity. I say this because I saw recently in a White Dwarf article that was shared with me a blue Admech army on Martian bases, and it looked so much nicer. Purely from an aesthetics point of view, right? Put the lore aside, and just look at the aesthetics, and it just contrasts nicer on that Martian base. Misfit says, what cult are you doing? I am doing a cult for Hive Fleet Gengar. Chat came up with a pretty cool name last stream. Cult of the Smiling Shadow. I'm leaning pretty heavily towards it. I won't lie. I think it's got right... It's like an indirect reference to Gengar, while still sounding sinister and spooky, which I like. So we're kind of adapting the Tyranid colors. So here's a finished test model. I think it turned out pretty good. You know, it's got the glowy bits worked into the mining lights and sensors. I got a little... Look at that cool grenade he's got. That's a little subtle reference, an Easter egg, if you will. Misfit says, nice, I called mine Cult of the Obsidian Coil. Also, a very appropriate sounding name. It has that certain quality, that edge. Pollux G says, smiling still sounds kind of wrong, so my vote is on grinning. The grinning shadow? That's not bad either. I mean, that is worth considering. We'll see. You know, nothing's set in stone just yet. I don't think there's any sort of models like with Space Marine and Ancient Banners where you have to write the name of the chapters. So we could always retcon it if we don't like it, guys. We have that power. We could always do a little bit of rebranding. They'll change their name like they're filing for bankruptcy. And it'll be very similar to their old name. All in an attempt to evade the Imperium tithe collectors. We'll spin it. We'll work it into the lore. Okay, that's a pretty good looking armor color, I think. Oh, we missed the top of the light, though. Okay, those should be all the purple areas of the armor. Though I did notice I missed his scarf. Misfit says, the genetic lineage of my cult comes from Hive Feet Tiamat. Love it. Love it. Tiamat's a good Hive Fleet. It has that successor allure, right? Like those successor chapters that have great color schemes and are underrepresented and don't have proper rules, right? But they have set themes. Pollock says, to me, grinning sounds more sinister than smiling. And everything is canon until it isn't. It's Warhammer. Oh, God. True. True. As much as I don't like it, that is true. Look, tomorrow's detachment is Eldari. And I'm sure it actually probably will be something interesting. If it's an aspect host, I'll forgive them for what they did today. Because that excites me specifically. I'm kidding. I could never forgive them for shunning the first heretics as they did. It's so lame. Like, this is their one chance to give the... No, I say one chance. They could make a fact tomorrow. It's not likely, right? But they have ample opportunity to throw a bone to Wordbearer's players, right? It's just not very likely to happen. But they have this Grotmit structure. This Grotmis structure is my point. It's a ripe opportunity to give the Wordbearers and Chaos Space Marines in general a demon-possessed focused detachment. Pollock says Paige said 2 detachments tomorrow. You think they will both be Eldar? Like an Eldar, Dark Eldar? Or it could be an Eldar and an adjacent Eldar, like Yannari, right? Like Craft World and Yannari, something like that. Or, no, I was going to say something wild like Corsairs or something, but I don't think they would go that. Like a Prince Uriel detachment, could you imagine? He ought to have one. I mean, if Bile gets a detachment, right? Prince Uriel should have one. Working with all sorts of Corsair units. And just shifting the flavor of the general range to be a bit more on that vibe. Or yeah, likely Eldar and Dark Eldar. That's possible. Icarus says, I call my Thousand Sons Thrall Band the Soul-Bound Brethren. I like it. Burn those thralls for the psychic rituals. That's all I would want to do. It could be the Word Bearers fan in me, but I feel like if I was a Thousand Sons collector, that would be my favorite thing to do. It'd just be house ruling it, begging and pleading GW to make the rules to allow me to do that. It's just an idea I can't let go of. That cultists should have unique utility, depending on the legion. Right? The mortal followers of each traitor legion would also, in turn, have a sort of unique culture and role in those legions. I think the through line just makes sense. Right? Thousand Sons cultists would help with rituals, burn up their souls, right? For their sorceress masters. A little harder to do without a psychic test, but you could make it happen. You could make it work, right? You could work that into Cabal points or something. So I want to do a little bit of edge highlighting. Not a full highlight, just like a broken bit of attention to detail, I guess. Icarus says it was already kind of wild for them to have written up 25 detachments. But they're even doubling up now. How many detachments have they written? It's a good question. Like I said when they announced this Grotness calendar, I was surprised by it even in concept. It's just not typical that they do this sort of thing. So I do welcome it in that regard. It's just hard not to be disappointed when I feel like there's obvious things that they could do, and they just do. The Word Bearers are the best example of it, probably. But even like we said early on, the Tyranids one is kind of blasé. It's kind of like boring, kind of like wasted potential. Okay, next I want to do his leather details. His pouches and holsters. I think that's about it. It's not too bad, right? There's a lot of accessories, but feels more manageable than Chaos Cultist, strangely. Actually, before the leather details, let's hit the scarf. We need more paint. We're painting with a box of scraps, metaphorically. We need more Darksea Gray. Friendly Neighborhood Inquisitor says, "Hey there, at What the 40K, how's it going today? Based on the title, you are less than thrilled about the creations of Bile Detachment?" Indeed, Friendly Neighborhood Inquisitor. Basically. Look, I think Creations of Bile is great for the fans of the fabulous Fabius, but, you know, if you're a diehard for that character, it's a win, right? It's a win to get something for it. So I'm not exactly saying it's an absolute waste with regards to yucking the yum of those fans. But it is a waste because the Chaos Space... My position is that the Chaos Space Marines Codex fails to serve the Word Bearers a proper detachment. And this seemed like a ripe opportunity to provide the Word Bearers such a detachment. A detachment with demons and possessed, right? An attachment with the mechanics that Wordbearers fans are familiar with from Faith and Fury and the 9th edition Chaos Space Marines Codex. Like how the other legions have received in the 10th edition Chaos Space Marines Codex. And in that regard, specifically, yes, the Creations of Bile Detachment that we got today for the Grotmas calendar is an absolute waste. Oh, we got some lore. Got some lore here. Misfit says 1 out of 5. Basically, my cult lore is on Vestroya. A rich noble smuggled in a Tiamat gene stealer for his personal collection from a warfront. Unknown to the smuggler, a second gene stealer hid away on his... where is part 2? Oh, no! Look, the continuity is broken. Pollux is right, too. Part 2 of 5 got eaten by YouTube. I guess we can assume part 2 of 5 was not safe for work. Anyways, Misfit says part 3 out of 5, cornered later by the authorities and the firstborn. One gene stealer is killed and the other is mortally wounded, though it does escape. As it was dying, it snagged the mind of a lesser noble nearby. The noble takes it to his house's science and medical facilities, and the gene stealer is saved with cybernetics, ensnaring the staff at the same time, so the cult began. A fusion of alien, human, and cybernetic. Kind of bladed cog-like, but a different origin. Well, in spite of missing part 2 of 5, Misfit, it's a pretty well thought through gene stealer cult. You can imagine rich nobles doing the... well, basically abusing that sort of privilege they have, right? Hiring a rogue trader to do something, you know, unscrupulous, or a smuggler. It doesn't have to be a rogue trader. It could be just like a standard smuggler, as you suggested. Okay, that should... oh no, I've nicked the purple armor. This is why, chat, this is why you always paint inside to outside. Now we got like an operation like scenario here, where we have to get into the nooks and crannies without hitting those edges. I think it turned out okay though. Unfortunately, because the off-white is expired, it's about as bright as I can go on this face scarf. Misfit says, I use ChatGPT to help write it. Lol. Hey, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Oh, part 2 of 5. When the ship arrives on autopilot, the crew unresponsive. The authorities open the ship and find a gory mess. Unaliving the authorities. The gene stealers slip into the night. Gotcha. Warp Forge says, I was hoping for a Nemesis Claw detachment, but I can be alright with Creations of Bile. A Nemesis Claw detachment? One that would lean into the new rules that the unit received, I guess? I feel like the Dread Host is fairly well serving for the Lords of the Night. Yeah, I would have complained about any Chaos Space Marine detachment that came out today that wasn't demon-oriented, to be fair. Whether it was Nemesis Claw or, you know, Brazen Beasts or whatever. You know, pick your flavor of Renegade. I would still end up having that same... it would still come down to that same argument for me, which is you need to serve the first heretics before you serve the side factions like Creations of Bile. Even if it's not good, you know. Warp Forge says, just give me Nemesis Claws and or Raptor's battle line. That's all I want. Yeah, that would be much preferred for a Night Lord's detachment, honestly. Right? Yeah, I can empathize with that position. Pollock says, I always forget that Tau exists. Yeah, Tau have their charm. Look, they get too much hate, in my opinion. You need them to foil. You need them to foil the Grimdark, I think. You need something a little clean, a little naive, right? I said I was going to do brown leathers, but let's do these boots. Just give them a bit of a highlight. Everywhere the light touches, we will hit with a lighter gray. We can give it a bit of a texture too. Misfit says, I love my kit bashing, but I find kit bashing Tau to be hard. Seen some Riptide kit bashes using Gundam parts that look cool. Yeah, I bet. There's loads of Gundam accessories, right? Like all sorts of even third-party Gundam weapons I've seen that you could probably incorporate into the Tau. Enhance the aesthetic a little bit. Tau's weapon aesthetic is not my favorite, unfortunately. I think it could use a little bit of refining. Like, I wonder if GW were to, you know, if Tau came out recently, like let's say in 9th edition, I don't think their weapons would look the way they do. The infantry stuff is mostly fine. I guess it's the Crisis. Largely the Crisis. Some of the broadside weapons look a little funny. A little funny also. So for our leathers, we're going to start with Rhinox hide. And then we'll chip in some Mournfang. Some Mournfang brown. Just to add a bit of variance. Well, I suppose I should paint his Pokeball grenade too before I do the all-over wash. That seems illogical. Gonna have to paint the dynamite anyways. Icarus says, if we're sharing lore, here's a fun fact. The leader of my Thrall band thinks Magnus died on Prospero, and that it's been a greater demon of Tzeentch pretending to be him ever since. So I'm not exactly thrilled Magnus was such an auto-include. You know, you could just use a Lord of Change as your Magnus. I mean, it's almost the same. It's just, look, Magnus is just a bit more man than Bird, than the Lord of Change. Right? I mean, based on your lore, it's a fun counts as, but I think unfortunately for general acceptability, with regards to tastefulness, you might need to do some conversions or something, or else people might feel it's in poor taste, especially if Magnus is powerful at the time. And people get in their feelings about such counts as, I find. Well, I definitely mixed too much of this brown. It's a good way to waste paint. Misfit says, I think there's more scope for Tau kit bashing when it comes to auxiliaries. Yeah, I think so. That's where there's loads of creative potential. I love the idea of just building out an army of an auxiliary, almost as if Tau was its own alliance or empire, right? I guess the issue is Tau is so comparably, it's so much smaller compared to the Imperium that it's kind of hard to justify that level of detail. But I think from a game point of view and a faction point of view, it'd be, you know, when that Kroot refresh came out, I was tempted to just build a themey Kroot army that probably would just lose every game. But the idea of these turtle warriors, well, they're not. They look like Ninja Turtles without their shells, right? I think it'd be a sweet looking army that may be fun depending on the rules, but definitely for the meme. It's kind of like having these Genestealer cults in Kill Team. Like I like the idea of underdogs, you know, not power fantasy all the time. We can have some warriors that are not representing the tip-top skill ceiling of the setting. I think it makes things feel a bit more fresh anyways. Icarus says, yeah, I'm going to try playing the new Detachment without him. He doesn't seem as central, at least. Either that or just focus on Guard for a while. I believe there were some changes to Guard in the balanced data slate, so maybe that'll push you one way or the other. I mean, I do, for the Thousand Suns, I do like that new Detachment. I think it better serves the themes of the manifesting magic and controlling the battlescape and getting rewards for doing that by, you know, exposing the reality for what it truly is. I think that controlling zones abstracts that better than declaring, now I will activate lethal hits magic mode. All my magic weapons have lethal hits. The same theme. Working together to boost up your magics, but abstracted so much more effectively by the new Detachment's mechanics, I think. It's abstracted, maybe not more effectively, but definitely stronger. It's a stronger abstraction. But a little highlight on the belt. Cool. We can get some gray on the grenade. I mean, the top is going to be red, but it's kind of hard to paint and you won't really see it in the case of this guy. Icarus says, I have my Vespids, though. I don't exactly know how to justify them in my little corner of the galaxy I've carved for myself. It's too far from the Tau Seps, or even the Star-Tide Nexus. You think the Vespids are mercenaries like the Kroot? I mean, I think they're mind-controlled. I don't think they're mercenaries. I'm pretty sure that's the established lore for Vespid. They're basically brain-slaved for the Tau, aren't they? Isn't that the unsaid terms of their agreement of the Tau's alliance? Misfit says, I saw a Mordian Glory Tau battle report. He built a guard army very much like he builds guard, mechanized infantry with tanks and artillery. Actually worked far better than I expected. Yeah, I think there's a real charm. It's almost like a bit of a counterculture sort of idea. Like, what's the coolest part about Tau? Battle suits is kind of like the typical answer, right? That's their most unique selling point over other factions. And so because of that, if you just build a boots on the ground, fire warriors, breachers, devilfish, and sky rays, just the grav tanks and the boots on the ground, I think you get a really charming army. Like, it feels novel because you're not leaning into the expected kind of aesthetic or unit type. It's a bit contrarian, I suppose, but hard to deny. Let's paint this tube. Let's make this tube a bit darker. He's got some other tubes around also. Got a tube here. Yeah, I don't think I can get real good coverage on that tube. Okay, time for reds. Sean says, could you please explain why word bearers are the worst? Thanks. Just a little public service announcement for chat. Sean is the worst. You can basically ignore everything he says. Word bearers are the worst. As it comes to people you don't want to fight. Right? They are the first heretics. They represent the first to fall, right? Perhaps the most revered, you know? Now, I doubt that's common knowledge to most factions or even most chapters. They might just see them all as the same, but I think it's important from a brand management point of view, right? A faction management, a rules upkeep point of view, where you want to serve people who've bought into particular themes. You know, Pact-bound Zealots not having any interaction with a demon keyword feels weird. If it's supposed to be a word bearer's detachment, I mean. Sean says, laugh my ass off, accurate. See, he agrees. Misfit says, Erebus, enough said. Yeah, that's the meme. Everyone hates Erebus and by extension the word bearers, but they get a bit too driven by their monkey brains, those particular individuals, because they don't realize you want hateable villains in your setting. It's actually important. You want some likable ones too, right? You want some Thanoses, right? But you want some bastards as well. And Erebus is definitely of the bastard archetype. He is what some would refer to as a bastard man. F for Argyltal. True. True, Misfit. Very true. Yeah, I had a similar arc with both the Word Bearers and the Ultramarines through reading the Horus Heresy. Probably the two legions I was least interested in liking. And then I listened to their stories, like, oh, there's some pretty good stuff here. So I think we're nearly ready for our all-over wash. We'll paint the weapon casing of the shotgun. And I guess he should paint his goggles, eh? He's kind of got these gross skin goggles at the moment. Gotta fix that. Icarus says, you gotta have those villains you love to hate. That's Erebus. Exactly. See, Icarus is not someone driven by the reptilian brain. An enlightened individual, some may say. You know what? This was a terrible idea. I should have base coded with Dark Sea Gray, built up to Gray Seer. Then we would be able to just kind of lean in on the variance of the uneven coat that we're currently grappling with at the moment. See, you always learn a thing or two from these hobby streams. Sean asks, what do you think of your salamander buffs? If by salamander buffs you mean buffs to Odes of Moment, it's okay. I think it's fine. Were there further salamander buffs deeper into the datasheets? I actually didn't do a deep dive on the changes to all the different armies' individual datasheets. There's too much to do on a hobby stream. So I kind of just did the overview of the PDF, and that was that. But with regards to Odes of Moment, look, I think it's a good quality get. +1 to wound is awesome. It's an awesome boon to your attack sequence, and it'll help make Odes more reliable with regards to putting stuff down, which is kind of like the theme it's trying to abstract. But I think for the salamanders, it's a little bit more sour than it is for others. Only because we have a bad +1 to wound stratagem that I feel like now is just further pushed into irrelevancy. But maybe if you were never going to use it to begin with, what's the difference? Yeah, it's just a weird situation with that stratagem where it saps my my enjoyment or enthusiasm for the Odes of Moment change. Oh, yeah, Sean, okay. Yeah, so Sean says, yeah, they basically made a thematic troop OC2 if you took the Epic Hero. Also, Shrike makes JPI OC2. Yeah, Shrike, dude, I love fucking Shrike. I feel like I should have just been a Raven Guard guy, because I'm such a fanboy. I'm such a fanboy for that model. But anyways, yeah, Shrike, Jump Pack Intercessors OC2, awesome. Volcanistan makes Pyre Blasters. What are those guys called? Incinders? Geez, the Primaris naming convention. It makes the new Primaris Flamethrower guys OC2. That's what Volcanistan does. Which I don't love. But they did get a buff to their ability with -1 Battle Shock, and they have AP now. Which, AP 1, up from 0. So it does make them better. It does make them better. So it's... Does it make them viable? I don't know. I hate D6 shots, but if you're taking a squad of 5 or maybe 10, you're more likely to get a fairer average. Then you have reroll wounds from Volcanistan. I think that's what he does for flame and melta weapons. And Volcanistan has his own OC ability, which boosts his OC, so then he boosts his troops OC, and it's there's a whole lot of OC. Sean says Infernus. That's what they're called. Infernus Marines. Or Infernus Squad. Yeah, Infernus at OC2 is... I don't like it as much as Jump Back Intercessors, if I'm honest, or even Assault Intercessors. But they have to kind of feed the theme, right, with Volcanistan, and there's no... He's not allowed to lead Eradicators, right, so... I guess what else would you choose? Just Infernus, guys. Oh, did you guys see the new Iron Hands model? I'm kind of surprised by these character models for these Heresy Thursdays. For the last few have been pretty interesting, if I'm honest. Iron Warriors last week, Iron Hands this week. These unloved factions in the Horus Heresy, and in 40k to a degree. Well, yeah, I think that's fair to say, are getting some love, which is nice. And I don't think it's a bad model either. I think it's a little. There's a lot going on, but I think depending how you paint them, it might not be as loud as it looks in the promotional art. Icarus says, the Iron Hands model looks really good, actually. Yes, I agree. I was kind of warmed my heart a little bit to see the Iron Hands get some love. They deserve it. They're an important legion that I get it. GW doesn't like focusing in on them because they're not as easy to position as heroes, but I think they are like the quintessential Space Marine in a sense. Motor City Knights, welcome to the stream. Motor City Knights says, Word Bearers rule. They set the heresy in motion and have some of the best color schemes. Also, possessed are cool. See guys, Motor City Knights gets it. Absolutely gets it. Yeah, what is more Chaos Space Marine? Right? Like, if a Chaos Space Marine is in essence a fallen angel, right? Playing off of the Angels of Death theme, right? How much further can an angel fall than to be a host to a demon? And that's what the Word Bearers kind of brought to the table. It's peak Chaos Space Marine. Okay, so we're nearly ready for the all-over wash. I just have to do the Force Org designation. So I'm going to put a little gray stripe, and then we'll cut into it. Just a gray stripe. I wonder if this guy... I feel like it's too bright. I feel like it's too bright. These white cloth elements. Maybe I overblasted them with the layering. Put some gray sear on the shotgun. Hopefully in a way to just also add some texture. So now I'm tempted to try and bring down the cloth color, perhaps with a watered down black contrast paint. I do have some modified black contrast. Some modified... It's Generation 1 contrast, though, so it's a bit less good. I think it is... Yeah, this stuff. I'm gonna try this out. We'll see. We'll live on the edge. Icarus says all 6 of the Iron Hand fans are eating good. Feels that way. No, I think the Iron Hands have many fans. It's just They're probably not the loud type, you know, not the vocal type. I'd like to believe that, anyways. Pollock says the most chaosy Chaos Space Marine is the one where you don't even know how chaosy is, or even if I am Alfarius. This is a lie. Maybe. I see what you're trying to say there, Pollux, but I think there's an undeterminable quality to the Alpha Legion that you're alluding to. But I think the ones that venerate chaos and exemplify the fallen angel archetype best are categorically the most chaosy. I don't know, it's hard to... Well, maybe you're talking to the wrong guy. Maybe my biases are just such. Icarus says, what I love about my Dusty Boys is that they never even chose to fall. That decision was made for them by the Imperium. A special kind of fucked up tragedy. Yes, that is a theme of sorts for many of the God-marked legions. It was kind of inescapable. Except for maybe in Fulgrim's case, or Emperor's Children's case. They kind of just did it to themselves, it seems. Is this, I don't know. I'm not exactly confident this is subtle enough. We're going to mix this down a little bit with some contrast medium, and we'll see what happens. It may result in this particular cultist just having weird clothes. And we'll just have to wear that. Yeah, you know what? That's actually all right. It's not a terrible quick alteration to kind of rescue the paint job. Bring those values down to a range that's closer to the target. Now we do have to give this a little bit of time to dry, but I suppose that time could be used to fix those skin goggles. Skin goggles sounds awful. It's not from anything, is it? Omegon's twin, welcome. Welcome to the stream. Omegon's twin says, with the 40k, I'm going to get the classic command squad when GW releases it for pre-order. Probably going to paint them like Retributors and run them in whatever flavor of army I feel like playing that day. Oh my god, Twin asks, why wear skin goggles over metal ones? Chakra Darat, welcome to the stream. Chakra Darat says, I'm late. Better late than never. Chakra. The company is always appreciated. Well, and the reason it's appreciated is because, as anyone who plays Warhammer knows, morale losses cause us all to flee. So the stronger our morale is, the more resistant we are to battle shock. You gotta get rid of these skin goggles. That'll do. And that's certainly adequate. Chakra Darat asks, what is the beef with the generally fun build detachment? The beef isn't with the detachment specifically. I think it's a good get for Fabius fans, but because my position is that the Chaos Space Marines Codex fails to serve the Word Bearers a proper detachment, the Grotness Calendar detachment for Chaos Space Marines was an ample opportunity to correct that error. And so, in that regard, this detachment was a waste, because I believe the first heretics should be served before bonus side factions like Creations of Bile. Now, I don't know if this is just glossy because of contrast or glossy because it's wet. Yeah, it just looks like the contrast is being shiny. Well, there it's wet. Okay, we'll give it a bit more time. I'm just such a fast painter, apparently. Chakra Darat says, I know he wanted true word bearers back, but Bill is fun. Yeah, Fabius Bile is like, I know he's a long time. People love Fabius Bill long time. So, you know, bully for you. Like, it's, you know, it's a win, like I said. It's a win. I just feel obligated to speak up for word bearers purists. I'm going to mix in my Agrax wash. We're going to put this all over, everywhere but the skin and... yeah, basically everywhere but the skin. The gun we want known oil, so maybe we won't do the gun either. We could do a bit of metal highlighting. Just a few areas I missed. Just to maintain maximum visual interest by hitting these little details. Just those two, right? That's the hinge point of the weapon. Kind of important. Add some texture to these plates here. Pollux G says Lorgar doesn't have time to be lore relevant. He is in a competitive game of hide and seek with Korax. Yeah, not the best look for Lorgar, I won't lie. I don't think that's how... Like, I know you want to, as a writer, you want to make Korax seem cool. 'Cause he's a cool character, right? He's a, you know, master of the edgelords, right? But you want... And I think Korax is, like, basically that vengeful aspect of the Emperor at this point. Of the Loyalists. Given the events of the Heresy. Right on line with that Batman theme, for sure. However, like I always say, you don't want your villains to... They need to be intimidating. You can't have your heroes bullying the antagonistic force of your setting, or else it renders them... not intimidating. It's a problem. They're no longer imposing, right? They need to have an air of threat and they need to be taken seriously. It could be possible that the meme community, the 40k community, has spun the story in such a way so that just Lorgar has like the worst possible position, that he's actually hiding and running away. It could be that the original story was more framing that Korax is seeking him. But if he's literally hiding and running away, like cowering, like you can't have that. And it's also counter to Lorgar's story arc from the Horus Heresy. Which is a shame if they forgot and regressed him. If they regressed his character arc in the Horus Heresy, because then what was the point of that? This should be a good level of dirty wash to just kind of apply all over. Just apply it all over. Oh, I forgot to do the cutout on his shoulder pad. Well, not the biggest issue. See, I have a terrible habit of focusing too much on miniatures that maybe aren't as worth the effort, but for kill team purposes, it's much more justifiable. Alright, so we can let the wash do its thing. I wonder if I can begin Icarus says, though Magnus has also been currently brooding over his failed plans in his evil wizard tower like a Saturday morning cartoon villain. See, Icarus knows what I'm talking about. You can't have your villains being without agency. Pollock says also that mystery with his giant bird form situation, which will hopefully be a plot point later in the lore. Ah, with Korax, I imagine you were referencing. Yes, he has a bird form. Definitely not the coolest way to describe it. But he has a bird form. He's coming together quite well, I think. We can probably put the gnome oil on now. And we'll see if I live to regret not diluting this. I think we're good. I think we will be fine as is. Omegon's Twins says, at what the 40k, do you think we'll get Company Champion back as a character? Grey Knights still have one outside Legends. On a different note, Bill Nye the cloning guy. Nice. You'll get the Company Champion back if GW wants to sell it as a product. Unfortunately, that's how the rules writing paradigm is, and it's super lame that's the case. If they don't sell it currently, if they don't want to accommodate for it in their inventory, is essentially what it is, right? If GW doesn't want to commit to supporting it in their inventory, which is already like a sinking ship, so to say, like with regards to inventory upkeep, because how often are things out of sale? Like from a point of view of using your inventory to support your game system, I think they're doing a pretty poor job, right? Things are constantly out of stock. So if they want to have a, $50 character model to sell, that's a champion, company champion, you'll get him back as a unit. Until then, he's part of the command squad, or the company heroes squad. It is what it is. I don't know if he'll, I think at some point, to answer your question, Omegon's Twin, it will come back, a company champion as a single unit, right? It'll probably just be in a combo box of some sort, right? They like to have Space Marines at the very least from a starter box point of view for like 11th edition, and they want to pack in a few extra characters. I can imagine that they would have a company champion. Why not have a new company champion sculpt, right? In a new easy to build champion sculpt, and it looks badass, and you know he's in the battle box. It's just a shame. I would prefer those resources going elsewhere and just having the rules be available, right? Like make a new sculpt for like a Chaos Lord, so he has more weapon options. Jesus Christ, right? Like I would much prefer that than another company champion. But now, because he's available, we can take him in matched play. Lame. Some pretty like ugly splotches on the back of his coat here. I wonder if I can remedy that a little bit. Looks like we color matched it close enough. Just do some cross hatching, try and mask the issue. Mask the blemish with texture. Just do some hatches. I think that looks better already. So you're not as offensive now. Fun trick, fun trick. Probably would only work well on fabrics, but still good to a good protocol to have access to. Okay, I'm going to bump up the brightness with some more gray sear after the null oil darkened it down. Just a bit. I kind of want the guns to read as white. It is a tie-in to the High Fleet color scheme. So I feel it's worth. Icarus says, it just hit me. Maybe Lorgar is trying to corrupt Korax into becoming more and more of a warp entity through all the time he spent warp hunting him. That could be a neat theory. That is an interesting theory indeed, Icarus. It is certainly on brand for Lorgar to corrupt his brothers. They could spin it that way. I'm not a fan of total flip-flops for Primarchs. I think it's a big old feels bad and a good way to punish your audience. But as an excuse for why Lorgar has been behaving the way he has been, and if it leads into an altered, or let's say tainted slightly form of Korax, I think it justifies his actions in a pretty tasteful way, pretty acceptable. Omegon's twin says, have a charity tournament this Saturday. Bring Deathwatch, not lousy Imperial agents. Well, Omegon's twin. Good luck for your tournament. Yeah, lousy Imperial agents is right. Okay, so we're coming up on 2 hours, and I like to keep these streams to that time if I can, but I think I can squeeze in working on his blue lights. Normally the biomorph weapon potency on the High Fleet Gengar Tyranid Orgasm, excuse the slip. The bio weapons on the Tyranid organisms, the bioluminescent features correlate to the weapon's strength. And I'm trying to abstract that onto the mining lights on these guys. So on autoguns, shotguns, blue, right? Maybe heavy mining laser, red is kind of what I'm thinking. Let's see here. We need a bright blue. I can probably use these. Oh my god, someone says that was a strange flip. It's kind of my thing. Oh my god's twin. Sean says, I'm taking my first spin with new Deathwatch tomorrow. What you running? Oh my god, twin, every kill team. Nice. That new jump pack kill team, the Talon Strike, they seems like there's some there, that's for sure. What do they get up to? AP5? AP5 plasma incinerators? Or plasma exterminators? That feels like 9th edition numbers. Oh my god, twin says orgasms are your thing? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Someone quote him. That is a bad faith assumption, Omegon's twin. Obviously, I was referring to my epic phrasing. Okay, so I think my Crag Blue mixed with this turquoise from Model Color is probably a good base for these sorts of features. I'm gonna bump it up to white. However, I am without off-white. So we'll have to give the old white scar, the old Citadel white scar, a whirl. Which I don't know. I just remember in the early days of painting being bad touched by Citadel white scar. Icarus says, it's the sad state of Angron that bugs me the most about how the Primarchs have been treated now. He's got the Lucius the Eternal problem now. You are too late, someone's going to X. That's fine. His loss to Lion was lame, says Icarus. Yes, and that's the same problem Vulcan had in the Horus Heresy. When you're able to... when death is not of consequence, poor writers will abuse you. They will abuse you to buff up the whoever they want to buff up. You know, who do we need to make look cool? Oh, Lehman Russ is coming back? Let's have him fight Angron. Well, you know what? That's a problem with all Demon Primarchs, because they're immortal beings at that point. So maybe it's wider spread problem than we're making it out to be. Any demon problem is, or any demon Primarch has that problem. How strange. I thought I had White Scar here. I do have Screaming Skull. Flayed One Flesh is also close to Off-White. Screaming Skull is probably closer. So we'll fall back on the Screaming Skull. Or Flayed One Flesh. So warmer or cooler undertone is what it comes down to. Let's go with warmer since we're working with blue. Maybe we'll get a more neutral if we go this way. Some chunky paint. It's already so much darker than Off-White. Omegon's Twin says, questions for what the 40k in chat. Does a demon's true name permakill demons or just banish them really well? It's a fair question. Probably just banish them really well, I would assume. I don't know, I'm not the most well versed on the banishment of demons aspect of the lore. I imagine Grey Knight lore aficionados would be able to clarify. Sean says, isn't that a Forgotten Realms thing? It just feels, it just lets you control them. Yeah, that's my understanding of how the true names things work. But I'm not exactly sure if it applies to 40k, or is that like a common fantasy kind of trope, maybe? Kind of bummed out I don't have my White Scar. Here it is. Here it is. Okay, now we can pump up those blue values. In fact, we can take some of this bright blue and mix it in with some of our purple stuff. And maybe build up some bounce light. How cool is that? Probably don't want to go too hard on that sort of effect. Let's not turn this into a Warp Spiders Phoenix Lord project. Omegon's twin says they have true names in 40k. Grey Knights use them all the time to kill demons. Well then. I guess that's how it works. Sean says, catch you later. Take care, Sean. Have a good evening. Yeah, a bit more purple stuff to create this insignia. This marking. You know what? I shouldn't have gone with the V. I should have gone with the dash. That'll save a lot of painstaking effort going forward. We'll change our test model in the future at some point. Henceforth, this is the diagonal squad. That looks decent, I think. I'm guilty of enjoying Force Org markings a bit too much. But they make your army like feel so much more grounded in their place in the world. I would encourage everyone to get into the Force Orgs. We can blend this out a little bit. So this is the Easy Islands recipe, effectively. And we put the bright blue back in there, and you're like, wow, look at that little eye-catching detail. Pyro says, well, I'll be off. You take care, Pyro. Thanks for tuning in. And good hobby hustle. I think we're nearing completion with this guy as it is. Right, and the last thing we'll do is just a bit of a dry brush with the Screaming Skull. Too harsh, eh? There, now we're cooking. Actually don't want to hit his skin with this. Mostly just the ribbed sections and armor and cloth. And I think that'll do. Just gotta clean off the dry brush. Well, well, well. I think this is where we're gonna wrap up. Look at them. Not too bad. So it seems like we can get these guys done in two streams. 2 streams per guy, which I think is a decent pace for this sort of result. Anyways, guys, if you made it to the end of the stream, just know you are the real hobby heroes. And thanks to everyone who contributed in chat and shared in the hobby camaraderie. and for those who liked and subscribed and interacted with the channel in all the ways that please the algorithm gods. Seems like we got an Eldar preview